Hey everybody, this is AComputerGeek01010001 here, and today we are back. Don't be surprised to hear some flapping or something going on. There's a bird trapped in the garage. What you are looking at here is a gaming computer from the early 2000s that was built on this day in 2004, November 4th, 2004. The copy of Windows XP that is installed on this particular computer has recently turned 14 years old, as of a few hours ago. This particular installation of Windows XP was installed on November 14th, 2004 between 5:35 and 5:55 p.m. CST, Central Standard Time. This machine came from an elderly couple who lives down our road, whose name shall remain private. This computer was brought up whenever I went to go deliver keys for a trash dumpster. I was asked if one of them had it. I was asked by one of them if I had a laptop which had FreeCell on it. Because one of them absolutely loves FreeCell. There's been like 14,000 some odd games of FreeCell played on this machine. I kid you not. The complaint was that the computer had decided to stop turning on. I immediately suspected the power supply. It was only today that I was able to get a hold of the machine itself, and sure enough, the power supply in this unit is faulty. It produces 5-volt standby, but I believe it produces 5-volt standby. It produces the proper 5 volts. It's like 4.91 or something like that on PS on. But as soon as you short PS on to ground to start the power supply up, PS on goes to 0 volts and the power supply effectively shuts down. Okay, I got no clue what was going on. Sounded like a piece of junk car. Anyway, there have been like 14,000 games of FreeCell played on this machine. This machine was originally a gaming computer until I don't know what happened. I guess it was given to the elderly couple, and it just, I don't know exactly what happened. But the thing pretty much sat in the same location for literally years on end, and just literally acted like a Hoover. There is a literal carpet of dust on this intake fan grill. The same intake fan grill where you can see who manufactured the case, or at least a branding on the case. Who knows who manufactured it? Which is X-Blade. Of course, with the very early 2000s styled case and window and whatnot. We have a dust-caked fan here with worn out bearings which have a 1/4 inch of play in them and needs to be replaced. And of course we have the Molex hookup for it. Inside this particular machine we have a relatively high-end motherboard paired with a relatively high-end graphics card and sound card of the time. And a hard drive too. And CPU. This is an MSI, where was it? An MSI MicroStar International model MS-6702E. from 2004. This thing was probably launched in 2003. We have two SATA, probably 1.5 gigabits per second connectors, one of which is populated and has a SATA cable leading to none other than a 2004 manufactured Western Digital Raptor 74 gigabyte hard drive, pulling a beastly 700 milliamps on the 5-volt rail and another 3/4 amp on the 12-volt rail. Manufactured July 23rd, 2004 in the Malaysia plant. Additionally, in the hard drive, I'm going to need to unravel this SATA cable out of here, this bright orange SATA cable, which also screams early 2000s. It has, frankly, the longest SATA plug I've ever seen in the 5.5 years I've been doing computer stuff. When we pull out this drive tray, which is also dripping with dust practically, we have another very dust-caked fan with more worn-out bearings that needs to be replaced. That brings the replacement fan count up to 2. Additionally, there used to be a fan back here which was seized up, did not rotate, and the LEDs did not work. So that brings the fan replace count up to 3. This machine was manufactured prior to the absolutely hideous bad capacitor plague that plagued the mid and late 2000s, which we're pretty much done with at this point. We have a bird up there which is hacking away at the insulation. Anyways, looks like we have a WinBond low pin count I/O controller. This machine is equipped with not only a SATA RAID controller, no less. A SATA RAID controller with, honestly, with this being an MSI board, I would not doubt that there is some kind of a pseudo hardware RAID controller. And there's our bird, which of course you can't see. This machine apparently used to have a floppy drive, I think. Either had a floppy drive and it was removed, or this machine has never had a floppy drive. The 34-pin cable was connected and just left. But the 34-pin floppy cable is present and connected to the motherboard. We additionally have 2 IDE channels, one of whose connectors is populated and connected to one DVD-ROM drive with no obvious branding on it, from what I can see. I haven't yanked the drive yet, but I'm going to tomorrow whenever I clean this particular machine. The sound card is a Sound Blaster Audigy 2 PCI sound card with no less than 7 connectors on the back of it. We have a FireWire, probably a FireWire 4, no, not 4, anyway, probably a FireWire 800 connector, and 6 3.5mm jacks. This sound card is also equipped with hookups for no less than 3 digital analog inputs from any kind of a CD or DVD reader which supports analog audio out. We also have a proprietary connector here for some kind of accessory to this card. Looks like a FireWire breakout going by the SB1394 legend above it. And we have a CD_SPD connector here. let me see, aux in, CD in, TAD, whatever that is, and that has to be some kind of a proprietary breakout connector for front panel expansions, which it doesn't look like that connector's ever been populated. Speaking of populated, we do have one AGP slot on this machine, and it is populated by a GeForce 4 graphics card by none other than NVIDIA. Also covered with very copious amounts of dust, and the fan sounds like a dying cat. If you can't tell, this computer has obviously not been cleaned in a very long time and has done very long hours. I did check the smart stats on the hard drive. It has reallocated 9 sectors in one reallocation event. And it has had 2 UDMA CRC read errors. The optical drive is IDE, and it does have the analog audio out connector connected. And the hard drive is a bridge design, and it's about as heavy as one of those two. It's probably about 10 pounds. It's the densest hard drive I've ever had. Well, not had, but it's the densest hard drive I've ever handled. The top here was covered in a literal carpet of dust. And this is a 10,000 RPM hard drive. And also another first for me, the first hard drive that I have ever physically seen with actual heat sinking on it. This particular drive is a bridged design, whereas the logic on the drive speaks IDE protocol, as evidenced by this jumper and this Molex connector here, but using looks like a Marvell chip of some kind. DF65150.3, manufactured the 24th week of 2004. That is translated to SATA, as evidenced by the SATA connectors, and then of course all inbound data received over the SATA protocol is translated back to the IDE protocol, and well, speaking from a systems perspective, a motherboard's perspective, it's a SATA hard drive. It communicates using the SATA protocol, and the motherboard isn't even aware, let alone cares, that the drive is a bridged logic design. Anyways, I have Stand by REM shoved in my head for some reason. Not a bad song. My mom has Material Girl shoved in her head. She hates that song. We have a very early 2000s looking MSI, probably a Northbridge heatsink. Looks like a Southbridge, and I don't know what this MSI core cell thing is. That's probably where I don't know what that is. Could be some kind of a don't know. Could be some kind of a energy storage capacitor to help back up the BIOS in the event that the system clock battery starts running low. I don't know. Speaking of clock and system BIOS, this machine uses an American Megatrends Industries BIOS from 1999, and judging by the date code on the bottom of that sticker, we could be dealing with a 1991 manufactured EEPROM part, electrically erasable programmable read-only memory part. Heatsink, processor. The processor in this machine is an AMD Athlon 64, probably I think it was a 3100 plus. I don't exactly remember. It was definitely a high-end option for back in the day. Of course, with it being an Athlon 64, this is a 64-bit processor and therefore is capable of running 64-bit software. At the time this machine was built, Windows XP I don't think was available on 64-bit hardware. So therefore, of course, no 64-bit copy of an operating system was installed on this particular machine. In fact, it is Windows XP Home Edition. Kind of surprising for what was intended to be a gaming machine. The heatsink, I'm 95% sure that the heatsink is completely plugged solid with dust. And there's practically no way of getting through. Because sitting in the BIOS, the processor is running at a baking hot 127 degrees Fahrenheit. Sitting in the BIOS. And this fan definitely sounds the part too. Put that in R/AMD. So if I go ahead and detension that, I may or may not be able to get this off of here. But I mean, back here it is caked solid with dust. Caked. Oddly enough, there's caking of dust around the parallel port connector, which I've never seen that happen into a machine before. I don't really know how to detach these AMD heat sinks off a machine. I'm not going to bother with it for now. And onward we go to the memory department. This machine appears to have 1 gigabyte of DDR RAM spread across two 512 megabyte Corsair Value Select RAM sticks of RAM, complete with the usual helping of dust. And RAM slots that for some reason still work. The second stick of RAM has been shielded from the mostly shielded from the onslaught of dust by the first stick of RAM. And here you're able to see the Value Select sticker much better. Yep, 512 megabyte sticks, VS 512 MB 400. So Value Select series, 512 megabytes, 400 megahertz. I think the BIOS is running these at 333 or 400. That's what I saw on the post screen. There is so much dust in here that I believe the dust is making this machine act wonky in all kinds of ways. First, it decided to not like PS2 keyboards, or any kind of a peripheral device for that matter, except a monitor. Because, I mean, it would start, say, checking NVRAM, and then it'd lock up. You have a bird attempting to build a nest in a fluorescent light fixture. There's a bug hanging off its tail. Hey bird, get down from there! I hope I don't have to get up there and redo that wiring up there tomorrow. Anyways, But yeah, I decided to not like PS2 keyboards. It would get to checking NVRAM and then it'd just lock up hard. Control Delete didn't do it and didn't do anything, and the only way to recover was to hit the reset button on the front of the machine, which of course pulled the reset line high on the processor and then restarted the boot sequence. Then it decided it wanted to like PS2 keyboards and peripherals. Then, after 30 minutes, it decided to not like PS2 keyboards again, and then it decided that it wanted its CMOS configuration reset, and it did so on its own accord. Of course, I suspected the system battery, pulled it, checked it, system battery's good. Then whenever I'm trying to get this stupid thing to boot off an optical drive, it complains that one of my optical drives is not a TAPI compatible drive, ATAPI. I'm like, what the heck? And the thing is just flat out refusing to boot from any kind of storage medium other than the internal hard drive. I mean, it'll recognize it. I mean, if I yank the hard drive, if I pull the power SATA cable to the hard drive and try to force it to boot off something else, it just goes. It ignores it, goes straight to PXE boot, and obviously fails since this machine doesn't have a network connection. Of course. So yeah. It seems like the IDE controller on this thing is going wonky. Of course, there's so much dust and crud in here that who knows. Of course, capacitors are caked in dust are caked in the onslaught of dust resulting from this fan pushing dust through the heatsink and so on and so forth, and has subsequently clogged the heatsink solid with dust. So and the thermal paste is probably all dried up and whatnot, and that's going to require a reapplication prior to this machine being put back into service. So yeah, some fairly extensive cleanup work is going to be underway on this machine. All the fans, except for the CPU heatsink fan, is going to be replaced. And the CPU heatsink fan is probably going to run a lot quieter. If the voltage going to the fan is derived from a thermistor, which I highly doubt since it goes to full throttle and stays at full throttle. If it is being derived from a thermistor, then the thermistor has probably shorted and is just delivering the full 5 volts to the fan. If the thermistor has not failed, then we should definitely hear a difference the next time this machine is powered on. But if it's just getting its power directly from the 5 volt rail, then, well, moot point. So, yeah. Not trying to place blame on the owners of the computer or anything like that. I mean, they are elderly. They probably don't know how to clean this machine or anything like that. There's an example of the dust. It turns to smoke as soon as I flick finger. Here's a good look at the fan. Again, complete with 1/4-inch cakings of very healthy, nutritious dust, complete with vitamin A, B, D, K, and it's, well, extremely healthy. Insert Shango 066 video reference here. Anyways, honestly, it's kind of a surprise this machine is alive at all. Well, posting, because I mean, there's so much dust and stuff caked in the RAM slots. I bet this machine is acting wonky because there's so much dust everywhere that it's just That is just causing all sorts of bizarre resistance problems. It's just changing resistances and stuff, and it's making everything behave in very bizarre ways. It's odd stuff. Odd stuff. None of the capacitors on the video card or the sound card are bloated. The ones on the sound card are probably in a very low stress situation, so that would explain that. Well, I'll be back, and we will get to see this machine cleaned live on camera. Onward and upward. Alright, we are back. It is the next afternoon. I have done pretty much nothing with this computer since we've last seen it. Yeah. So what we're going to do is we are going to disassemble this machine completely. First, we're going to begin by removing the expansion cards. After unplugging the CD audio connector. So we're going to begin by removing the expansion cards. So the first thing to come out is the graphics card, which, as I've said before, is a NVIDIA GeForce 4 graphics card. I don't know what all's involved in removing an AGP graphics card. Looks like there's a tab back here. I'm going to have to slide back in the card. May or may not come right out, depending on how rivet is going to, depending on how much this stupid rivet jack sends up. I may or may not have to pop. Or mangle in some way or another. Yeah. This is unexpected. There we go. Cleared the rivet. And the card comes right out. And here's an example, and here is the card. This is an AGP card. As you can see, the graphics card looks like it's white-ish, but it's actually blue under all that dust and dirt and crud and spilled Coke. The heatsink is plugged up solid. The fan, it surprisingly enough, is not worn to heck and gone. And turns smoothly. None of the capacitors are bloated. So I'd say the graphics card, other than having a completely clogged heatsink and a fair bit of dust on it, is doing pretty well. Next up is the Sound Blaster Audigy 2 PCI sound card. Again, very, very large amount of dust on here. Yeah. It's black. This is a model SB0240 card. With, as I said, no less than 7 connectors or connections on the back. And again, mountains of dust. Next thing is disconnect the SATA cable. Just disconnect all the cables and get them out of here. There's a ton of dust embedded in the sheathing of this cable. And there's also some dust on the floppy connector. You know, I wonder if this thing's ever been cleaned in the 14 years this machine has existed. Here is a curious looking Molex splitter, which is going off to the side. Now to unplug the optical drive and its IDE cable with a gargantuan amount of dust on the sheathing. And here, yeah. Whenever I upload this video, I'm going to post it to r/DustyPCs on Reddit and go from there. And unplug this cable from the optical drive and throw it in the cables bin. Oh my gosh. And at this point we're going to go ahead and remove the other side of the case, which oddly enough there's 3 screws securing it. I wonder how much dust is caked back here. I almost forgot some kind of a pseudo expansion device. Oh yeah, we have dust flurries out the butt. Hair, dust, dust, dust. There's so much dust caked in this machine that I'm probably going to have to go grab a high pressure nozzle and take it to this machine. Boy, we got some dust. And there wasn't even, there's not even a fan in that position. And look at the dust. Holy cow. Here, let me show you. Get this thing off the tripod, but I don't drop it and break it. There are dust flurries all up in this thing. There's probably going to be a lingering cloud of dust here in the garage. Alrighty. There's 2 screws at the top here that hold the optical drive, help hold the optical drive into place. So, go ahead and get an eye on those screws, well, the camera's eye at least. The screws are pretty loose. This is a IDE DVD drive. And I bet the IDE controller in this machine is malfunctioning due to all the dust crammed up in here. Next thing I'm going to do is repeat this process for the other side of the optical drive. If you're able to see what's going on, whoop-de-hoo. If you're not, well, I'm not doing a retake. Alrighty. And there's a pop a cover on the front wide open. And this drive is going to be pulled out. Okay, this is a Lite-On Corporation disk drive. With surprisingly not a whole lot of dust on it. Manufactured September 2004. Well, yeah, there is a lot of dust on it, but it's nowhere near the quantity on other parts of this case and other internal components. Set that off to the side somewhere. Also, take a look at all the dust on here. Yep. You won't see this many front panel expansion device slots on a case nowadays, unless it's a server grade case. We have 4 5¼ inch front panel expansion bays and 2 3.5 inch front panel expansion bays. In the most early 2000s looking thing ever. We also have 2 USB 2.0 ports, microphone, and headphone jacks at the bottom of the case, which you can't see. But yeah. Next thing to happen is I'm going to raise this tripod right all the way back up. Then I'm going to extract the 2 512 megabyte sticks of RAM, both of which are Corsair Value Select VS 512 megabyte whatever. I can't read the rest of the model number due to it being 100% obscured, at least on that particular stick. On this particular stick, I can read the entire model number. VS512 MB400, so 400 megahertz. 400 megahertz of DDR. And we can then have a nice look at all of that dust on the RAM slots, heatsink, capacitors, between the PCI and AGP slots. Yeah. Next thing I'm going to do is there's another device installed in here. It's kind of a breakout from the motherboard. It provides LED post codes, and it exposes 2 USB ports. I'm going to unplug it, unleashing even more furries into the case. And here we go. You can actually see an outline on the metal piece where the case was blocking part of it off. This is the USB connector, and this is the LED connector. Provides power to these 4 LEDs on the back. Now, I'll set that off to the side. The next thing that is going to happen is the motherboard is going to be coming out of here. Unleashing even more furries into the case. And this one screw down here is very loose. Honestly, all the screws are pretty dang loose. So this machine has probably never been cleaned in its 14 some odd years of operation. Wonder how that GeForce 4 will hold up against modern gaming. Probably not very well. One thing's for sure, all of these screws are caked with dust. And I forgot a screw. Next thing you know, the motherboard is going to be coming out, unleashing a ton of furries. And we have liftoff. No, because I forgot another screw. There we go. Holy cow. Look at the back of this thing. That is clean. Now look at this side. Dust is a common trend. I'm going to put this motherboard over here. And it is going to be left alone. Feel free to post this video to r/AMD. r/AMD, that's AYYMD. Now I'm going to, let me see, pull the front panel off the case. And looks like we got major dust sitting in this machine. Oh boy. Boy. Oh boy. Look at this. Oh my God. Grab a screwdriver. Oh my God. Oh my gosh. Oh boy. We have a sight to be seen. I probably should have put a warning at the beginning of this video that says to the effect of, if you do not like large quantities of dust, don't watch. But that really shouldn't be a surprise given the title of this video. Look at this. That is a literal dust mustache. Boy, oh boy, I can hear the air compressor getting ready for some fun. Oh boy. So, I am going to deroute all of this case wiring and stuff. No wonder why the front USB ports didn't work. They were never connected. Well, that is going to be resolved whenever I throw this machine back together. I think I know why they weren't connected. They are a freaking... Oh my God. Oh, this is... Good Lord. What the heck, X-Blade? Why do you have to make it so freaking hard to connect the microphone, to connect the front panel audio jacks? Anyways, this is a curious looking adapter that came with this case to facilitate powering the front panel lights. Going into the cables area. Getting dust on the camera. Now, the 4 screws holding this fan in are going to be removed, and this fan is going to be pulled out. Now, I've mentioned this before, but all of the bearings in this fan, the side panel fan and the rear fan, are worn out. There's like a 1/4 inch play in the bearing. Yeah. Yeah. Blah. Now, this is the dustiest case I have ever seen. Yeah. And I'm not going to shut the camera off to clean it either. Headphone users, get ready. This is going to get really loud really quickly. Well, not about the really quickly part, but I'm going to put a high pressure nozzle on I'm putting a high pressure nozzle on this blaster because we are going to 1,000 trillion% need a high pressure nozzle for what I'm about to show you. You know, what I'm about to show you is not cleaning the computer. It's related to the motherboard. It's related to a component that attaches to the motherboard. It's related to cooling said component. Yep, heatsink. Boy, oh boy. This thing is plugged solid with junk. And I need to go find a screwdriver that I just had in my hand. There we go. This thing is absolutely plugged with dirt, dust, and grime. I'm definitely 100,000,000% changing the thermal paste on the processor and the heatsink. I'm going to need a small Phillips head screwdriver. There we go. To remove this heatsink fan. I know all you're staring at is just a motherboard, but what I'm about to show you is going to make the rest of this system almost pale in comparison. Too small with the screwdriver. Let me see. There we go. heat sinks and stuff on AMD processors. Used to the Intel stuff. Username is u/tech_geek. Okay, my Reddit username is _tech_geek_. So yeah, the fan is dusty, but it's a Delta DC brushless. This thing moves some air and dust. And we of course have that nice glorious AMD sticker that cameras everywhere absolutely hate trying to focus on. Then we have this wonder of existence. Post this to r/DustyPCs. Post this to Facebook group IT Install Nightmares. Oh my gosh. Post this everywhere. Stop the video, take a screenshot, post this somewhere. Put it on Discord, put it on Reddit, dump it in upload it to an image site and dump a link in a YouTube comment somewhere on some random video. Let people see this. Your heat sinks should never get so clogged you cannot see through, you can barely see through them. And this is what we need the high pressure nozzle for. Let me see. Alrighty. High pressure nozzle. This is the high pressure nozzle. See how small that hole is? Compare that to this. Goodbye that. And technical difficulties. I need an adapter. There we go. How's this nozzle in comparison? I prefer the other one. Headphone users, you can turn up your volume temporarily. This is a very serious warning. I'm going to be putting my earmuffs on. If you have speakers with treble and you have connected them through an amplifier or some kind of an amplification device that supports treble controls, a speaker that has a tweeter, and you have connected it through an amplification device that has some kind of treble controls, I highly recommend that you either switch to different speakers, turn your volume down, or turn your treble control down immediately. I am not responsible for damage incurred to speakers by improper usage of your amplification equipment. Headphone users, turn your volume down immediately. Three, 2, 0, negative 5,004. 3, 2, 1. Dust Mania. That's more like it. Now for the fan. Oh boy, look at this. Look at this. Air compressor coming on. If you are not using headphones and you have your treble control turned down, now is a good time to reduce the volume on your amplification equipment now. Headphone users, consider yourself warned as well. I'm going to remove this processor from the socket and blast out beneath the processor. of RAM closest to the processor. So it subsequently received evidence of dust produced by the processor. This stick of RAM was behind the first stick of RAM, so it was mostly shielded. That's the RAM. Look at that now. Yep. This is the first time I've ever had to dust off cabling. This particular floppy cable may not go back into the computer. my God. Now to take care of any potential remnants of the dust stash that used to be on this machine. And just in general. Now have a little bit of fun with this fan. Alrighty. Grab the orange seized up fan. This. There's a sticker on the front of it in case you're interested. Now for the size of the case. We're just pretty much... And air compressor again. Removed one of the, I just removed the fan from the side cover. A little bit funky. Side cover. I'm probably going to remove this big old piece of perspex or whatever the heck it is and pokes on the side of it. Drive cage. Give everything a lap once over. Probably ought to hold the power supply out here and dust it out. Dust everywhere in the checker when I open it. Everybody, if you're watching this video still, mute your speakers now. Alright. Yeah, let me go grab the power supply. Alrighty, I'm back. The failed power supply out of this machine is an LNC model LC-B450E from LNC Computer Co. Limited. There's a common trend here. Dust, 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 dust. Plain and boring. Dust. Dust. Headphone warning. Yet again. There. Now it's time to put all this back together. Barring the power supply, because it's dead. Just for now, I'm going to reinstall the fans. Yeah. Just for now, I'm going to reinstall the fans and see how they do. Zoom out and raise the tripod back up. buddy. I bet doing a fan job on this machine was real fun. Well, this is probably the first time this machine has ever had a fan job done on it. Now, what do I mean by fan job? Well, fan replacements. And boy, is the side of this thing nasty. I don't know what happened, who did it, when it happened. Just my observations. Next thing, go ahead and slap a fan back on the front of the machine for now. Pan down and zoom in on that general area case. Right now, an Amazon order for this machine is going to be oops, 180 millimeter fan, probably a couple 120 millimeter fans, and a power supply for this machine. Nice and secure. Of course I put it on backwards. Well, doesn't matter anyway. I'm going to be swapping it in the not too distant future. So yeah, with the case cleaned and 2 fans reinstalled, go ahead. And this is just temporary, but I'm pretty much just gonna slap the fan on the heatsink on the processor, and call it good. Of course, you should only do this as a temporary measure. Do not do this as a permanent measure. You risk damaging your processor. It is always a good idea to reapply thermal compound to your processor each time you remove the heatsink and CPU or CPU. Let me try that again. Each and every single time you remove your heatsink from your processor, you should always clean your heatsink and processor and reapply thermal compound. Now, I believe I have 2 videos up on YouTube right now. that detail how to do this. So yeah, that's the heatsink back on the processor, not processor, that's the heatsink fan back on the heatsink. I bet pretty much none of y'all were able to see that. The motherboard's going back here. Case is coming up. And the first thing I'm doing is I'm going to throw the front cover back on this rig. Somehow. USB. I actually think the reason why the front panel headphone jacks and stuff were never connected is because the motherboard's because the motherboard's sound card, internal sound card, had been replaced by the Sound Blaster Audigy 2. Still no excuse to make them ultra difficult to connect. There. Now I have disgusting hand. Now that all that's been hooked back up, the motherboard is going to go back in the case. Of course, none of y'all can see what the heck I'm actually doing. Looks like this motherboard has either Rubicon or Nippon Chemicon capacitors installed. Maybe Nichicon caps. All three are highly rated Japanese capacitor manufacturers. And there's a motherboard header available to plug the USB ports for the front panel in. So there really wasn't an excuse to not plug those in. And I think the best I could possibly chalk it up to is, well, just laziness of the builder of the machine, I guess. Alrighty. Anyways, I'm gonna shut the camera off and put this thing back together. Yes!
Are you filming?
Yes.
Oh.
What are you doing?
Nothing.
Okay. Yeah.